Welcome back to the Remedial Film Class Podcast. I'm your host, Dan.
And I'm Travis.
And I'm George.
Hey, George, how's your existential dread right now?
It's terrible.
Yeah, man.
It's really bad.
It's at
We watched Failsafe, the 1964 classic that scarred a generation of viewers.
11.
And I can see why.
It's an uplifting film.
Oh, my God. Hey,
Following orders and
Hey, man.
Family.
stuff happens. Stuff happens.
Stuff does happen.
And then you do it. Now, I realize that the movie Failsafe is not as well known as some of the movies we've done. So, much like with our Bird with the Crystal Plumage episode, we are going to discuss the initial impressions on the film first, and then when it is no longer safe for the viewers who haven't seen this movie, we're going to tell you, stop it now. See you next week.
Sounds good.
So, George, do you have any notes tonight that you want to hit up from the initial impression of the movie, or anything you really want to get off your chest?
I didn't take notes this time, but my impression of the movie overall was that first of all, let me just say I liked it. It was very good. It was very straightforward. Let's say
Yes. It was like a play.
it was not. There was. I'm trying not to give anything away. The plot was very well defined. Okay, what was going on, you couldn't miss it. You were never confused. Okay, very straightforward. But the stress level was high the whole time. It was yeah, and it's even worse because the subject matter is something that is not fiction.
No, I don't know how that was.
So
Cut
Travis
that shit.
Travis has a gargoyle in his throat.
All of a sudden, I got the Cuban Missile Crisis happening in my throat. What was I texted you? I can no longer take verbal messages. Yeah, that's what I got going on right now. I can't talk. I got a raptor in my throat.
So, for a viewer who's never seen the movie, and we're convincing you to watch this movie before you go too far into the podcast today, the basic plot of Failsafe is the potential for accidental nuclear war in the 1960s. Can they stop an accident from causing nuclear war? And what are the grave consequences of us giving so much control over our defense structure to machines and bureaucracy?
Right.
Very
Not
tense
far-
movie. Not a lot
far
of
from
fun.
the plot of Terminator 2.
Not a
Terminator.
lot of laughing in this
No.
movie. Not a lot of jokes. But directed by the director of 12 Angry Men, Sidney Lumet. So, I mean, a very accomplished director starring some very famous people acting their butts off. Travis, tell me about the acting, your initial impression, because you just watched it for the first time yesterday.
Yes. It's a different style of acting because it's that 1950s, which I like. I love 12 Angry Men. With this movie, the acting was... It's hard for me to watch it because it kind of was lost on George, I'm sure. But to watch Walter Matthau play that part, which was the professor, the war-hungry professor.
Yeah. The George W. Bush character.
Yeah, to see him play that part, to see Dom DeLuise play a complete and total straight arrow character.
Which character was that?
He was like the sergeant that in command had to come over and basically give away secrets.
Bogan?
No, that was the general.
He was the one who came up when the other guy froze and the other guy refused. He was like the lowest ranked guy who finally kind of choked out an answer.
Gotcha.
Like I'm a child of the 80s. So
Gotcha.
I was born in 75. So to me, Dom DeLuise is comedy. That's all he is. Walter Matthau
I could
is
see that.
comedy. That's all he is.
Oh. I could see the comedy in the first guy. Dom
DeLuise.
Yeah, the guy that choked out the answers.
Yeah, he's kind of like a Abbott and Costello type comedy.
I can see him being that kind of guy, but
Right.
not the other guy.
No, Walter Matthau
Not the
from my
professor.
childhood was just him and Jack Lemmon for decades did comedy.
Okay.
I could see a Jack Lemmon in this movie. To me, Fonda, who played the president, is an icon on that level of Jack Lemmon. So I could see Jack Lemmon playing that part, but he was probably too young at the time. I love the acting, but I would love to see this movie done with today's style of acting, maybe 15 years ago. Just that, because this kind of story, I loved it when it was Hunt for Red October. I loved it when it was Crimson Tide. Just that espionage, that stress of nuclear weapons going off at any moment. Even in the 80s, we had like War Games and other movies like that, Red Dawn.
Weird Science. I mean, let's not forget.
There was a rocket ship in there. That's the only connection I found. Even you don't get Red Dawn without a movie like this. You don't get Red October without this kind of movie. You don't get Spies Like Us or Stripes without a movie like this. Like, it's just that it's such a good basis for either comedy or stress.
This type of
this situation.
Yeah.
Which I have a feeling you're going to learn more about how it's dealt with from a different angle later on.
Now, right at the beginning of the flick, it opens with a bullfight, and it turns out to be a dream, a nightmare, of the main character from the movie credits, Dan O'Herlihy. Now, Dan O'Herlihy was Oscar nominated for Robinson Crusoe. So coming into this movie, he is like an A-list guy. He's leading the credits. And if you look at the IMDb now, he's listed like 4th. Because since then, he's pretty much known as the old guy from RoboCop. Did you recognize him at all, George? Probably not.
No.
But General Black is his name. And he played the old man in RoboCop, what's your name, son, at the end of the movie. The OCP guy. So you've seen him before, but you've seen him way old instead of kind of toward the end of his peak. They never did explain why he had an accent, but that's okay. I'll live with it. Now, Walter Matthau, my God, in this movie, I only know him as a grumpy old man from watching him growing up.
And The Odd Couple.
He looks like if you had said, hey, Tommy Lee Jones, I need you to play Richard Nixon.
Right.
It's bizarre, the resemblance of a young Walter Matthau and a young Tommy Lee Jones. It blows me away every time. And Henry Fonda, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh
clinic.
my God.
That's what I wrote down. He just put a clinic on.
Well, and
it was subtle.
Larry Hagman shows up, which I only know him because he's JR from Dallas, and I only know that because Mr. Burns got shot once, and then I had to learn about Dallas from my mom. But well, he acts his butt off
big
too.
On, wasn't he on Bewitched? Or no, yeah. Or was it I Dream of Jeannie? It was one of those.
I only know him as JR.
Yeah, I think it was I Dream of
Jeannie. I don't even know who shot him. Yeah, he was on I Dream of Jeannie, according to
that's
the
where I knew him from. He was kind of like Dick Van Dyke, kind of a popular TV actor. But yeah, everybody's straight, playing it deadpan straight, except for Matthau. Matthau was the only cartoon character in this whole movie. Like, he was pushing the narrative a little too hard. Like you said, he was the GW. I think he's more like a Chaney.
I was just thinking that I made a mistake by saying W.
Yeah, he's more like Chaney.
It was Chaney. Yeah.
See, and I just kept thinking he was either Goldwater or he was Kissinger.
Okay.
Somebody slightly outside the mainstream, willing to push.
Yeah, but with decent influence.
But at this point, Goldwater is literally the presidential candidate. So I guess not that far out the mainstream. Holy mackerel, guys.
Well, what do you know about the Cuban Missile Crisis? Like, do you know how close we were to blowing each other up?
I wish I knew more than just that.
Yeah, I mean, the Russians moved nuclear missiles to Cuba. Like, they were housing launches, like possible launches. And Kennedy got us out of it. I don't know how. In that same kind of war room situation where you really don't know what went down, but we were on the verge. What was that, like 61, 62?
October 62.
Okay. So that's why when he was assassinated, people were like, oh, was it the mafia? Was it the Cubans? Was it the this? Was it the, like, there's so many things that happened in his 3 years in office, or, not even 3 years. A little over 2.5.
Well, and they'll say that the Cuban Missile Crisis is the result, it's like a counter move after the Bay of Pigs invasion.
Right.
Cuba asking for help and the Soviets being like, yeah, we'll help. Ugh. But yeah, definitely the closest we've ever come to nuking the entire planet to death. Around the same time, there was a book that became a movie called On the Beach. Are you familiar with that, George?
No.
Basically, nuclear war happens. The entire world is covered in fallout except for Australia. But the fallout is in the air and moving toward Australia. So the characters are just awaiting death in Australia.
Yeah.
Ugh. It's like The Thing.
It's just, I don't think we can emphasize how much the generation of people who were young in the 60s were effed up in the head. Growing up, constantly scarred by these stressful
It trickled
events.
into the 80s. I mean, when I was growing up, I always thought we were going to die. I just, between the movies and the rhetoric and all that stuff, I always thought, I'm going to wake up the day after tomorrow. Was it the day after, I think it was called? I think it was like 1981. That movie freaked me out forever because it was basically nuclear fallout. Everybody who was in basements lived, everybody else died, and they showed like the aftermath. So it was the day after the bombs went off.
Right.
And then you have movies like War Games and, again, Red Dawn. Like, you constantly thought in the 80s that the Cold War was going to finally reach its end badly.
Culminating in
just nuclear fallout.
Yeah.
And then I met a Russian coworker at my other job, and I told him, he was the same age as me, and I told him how it was here, and he was like, yeah, no. That's not the propaganda they were given. So it's like, but I'm like, every movie we watched, we thought there was going to be annihilation. Like, it was just that much going on here. So yeah, I can imagine just 3 decades of that from 60. When was Bay of Pigs? Like 61?
61, yeah.
So from then to 1980, when was the Tear the Wall Down? 84?
89.
Oh, 89. Oh, right, I was in middle school. Yeah, so 89. So that's a long time to think you're going to die.
Yeah.
George, I don't know how familiar... I know how familiar you are with 90s history from previous episodes, but how good's your Cold War history? Are you familiar with this era?
I can't say that I am. School me.
Well,
Unbiased.
Well, both of you school me, and then I'll get both sides.
Well, I think we're on the same page against the Cold War. I just think 80s.
Yeah, I know, but like, there's always like
some people.
Yeah, there's always that, like, that history is told by the winner type thing. So, but yeah, school me.
in this case, it was told by the survivor. Thank God.
Right.
What a mess, guys. The world is a messy place, but honestly, are we that much safer from nuclear annihilation, or are we just the foolish people that forgot about it right before it happened? So, this movie is based on a book. This movie is made in 1963. So when they start making this movie, we can talk about Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and like they start making it here, and by the time it's released, like, how much worse the AIDS crisis is. Well, in this case, they start making the movie in 63. By the time it's released, President Kennedy has been shot and killed, replaced by a new guy. And the new guy is running for president against the most hawkish person to ever run for president at a time when he was like actively pursuing potentially proactive use of nuclear weapons against our enemies. Like, geez Louise, guys. Heck of a backdrop for a movie about accidentally backing our way into a nuclear war.
Yeah, right.
Now, are you familiar with Barry Goldwater at all? Does that name ring a bell?
The name does, yeah.
He got like the least amount of electoral college votes ever. He got like 50 votes.
Okay.
He won
He
like
lost
5
to
states.
Johnson. I mean, how good could he have been?
Yeah, who was the vice president
Yeah.
Now,
when
Kennedy was shot.
Yeah, when Kennedy was shot.
have you ever seen the Daisy ad? The political advertisement referred to as the Daisy ad.
I saw it today.
I think so.
So,
But explain it.
to
Talk about
summarize
Mongo.
it,
It's like the daisy is like the only thing that's left after the bomb goes off.
oh no,
basically.
No,
this is-
Daisy's a girl.
a little girl
Oh.
picking the petals off of a flower, and then it
Uh-huh.
cuts to a nuclear explosion, and then
Zooms in on her
Johnson
eye.
does like a real dramatic overdub, you know. These are the decisions that will lead to the, it's like scaring you off. I'll put it in here because I'm sure
Okay.
that
You're
that
gonna
won't get
play
a
it?
copyright strike. But if you want to listen
Right.
to it real quick, you ought to.
It's 1 minute and 20 seconds long.
Hmm.
Look at those bangs.
She counted backwards.
Yeah. No, she's just counting gibberish.
They talk about today's rhetoric.
Holy.
To make a world in which all of God's children can live, or to go into the dark. We must either love each other, or we must die.
Vote for President Johnson on November 3rd. The stakes are too high for you to stay home.
Wow. That's one way to do it.
That's on the nose.
So that ad is released September 7th of 1964. The movie you just watched came out 1 month to the day after that advertisement.
Hmm.
So you're in an election season. You're in Vietnam. You're on the brink of the Cold War becoming a hot war. You've got the scariest political ad of modern times. And then you have this movie with its optimism. I mean, what a time to be alive, guys.
And it's not the only movie that came out that year with that kind of mentality. So
It's these are wild times that we live in now. But I don't know that we would have made it through, times as stressful as the mid 60s. My God.
no.
But they got some really sweet music out of it, and we get stuck with what we've got. So, it's a wash, really.
It's
Now, did you notice there's really no score in this movie, George?
Yeah, kind of.
I
Because
thought I heard the bells, but then I didn't.
Yeah.
Turns out I was watching Weird Science again.
he missed those too, so it's all good.
Yeah,
Now, you guys saw Dark Knight Rises, correct?
is
Of course.
Did you notice when you were watching Dark Knight Rises that there's no score at all during the first fight between Batman and Bane?
yes.
I did not notice
The
that.
reason they do that is because your movie watcher body expects a score to kind of ride along with you. And so if you do a scene with no score, all it does is like leave you uncomfortable and tense because you're waiting for, wait a minute, am I missing? Where's the there should be stuff's nobody's talking. It puts you on edge. This whole movie does that to you because they don't have any score really. It's just the clock. It's just
They use some sounds,
the
kind of like
tension.
Texas Chainsaw. It's a lot of sounds.
Oh my God. The one sound
Yeah.
effect in particular, just chilling.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh.
the
Oh. Oh.
I won't spoil it.
Yeah, okay.
I was listening in the beginning.
Now, we talked when we watched The Thing about the original The Thing from Another World. And I mentioned that in the 50s, there were a ton of movies that were about the Cold War situation, but by proxy, right? You've got The Thing from outer space. You've got Them, the giant monster bugs. You've got other monster bugs, tarantulas, and all of them brought to you by science, right? Because we're afraid of the nuclear age, but also like an other from outside. So they like stand in for the Soviets because nobody wants to look the Soviets in the face in these movies, right? We don't want to provoke anything by making a movie, and nobody wants to spend money at the box office to see their reality just in their face. Escapism, right?
Yeah.
This movie took the opposite tact, right? It just grabbed what you were already worried about, smeared it on the screen, and then, just held your face up to it for 2 hours.
Look what you did. Just rub your face in it on the carpet.
Now, I would bet that this was a very successful movie.
It really wasn't. It was kind of a flop.
Really?
Yeah.
Critics loved it because it kicks ass. But for a number of factors, some of which we'll discuss later, some of it we'll discuss now, it didn't do that well at the box office. And you could attribute that to some fatigue, right? But also just to the fact that, it's really good, but it's not, this is not a feel-good pick-me-up, like let's watch a movie and feel good for 2 hours. This is tense from the jump.
No, I was thinking that it would be successful because of, in the same way that like, your local news is successful. Like, I think we've talked about before how like the news, like they know that like the most horrible stories are what like keep people coming back because we're like just wired to look for danger.
But that's
and
today.
Whatever.
Back then, I think people wanted a break from the bullshit.
No. People have always been wired that way. Like evolutionarily, we look for danger so we can avoid it. So like, I would think that a movie that was this terrible would attract a lot of attention, a lot of eyeballs. But like you said, fatigue, about the subject.
I think quality too. Like, it's a great movie, but it suffers at a few points that most movies don't suffer at. Like, I know they had a lot of trouble getting stock footage of things that they wanted to convey on screen, and they just couldn't.
Yeah, you could tell.
They used the same airplane like 9 times. Like, it's stuff that you would get in a low budget film. It was very scratchy. The animated maps and stuff obviously were a lack of budget, and you could tell there was lack of money, but the money they did spend, they spent it well with the actors and the acquisition of a good script. Like, all that stuff is there, but you can tell visually the art direction of this movie suffers a bit.
Sure.
I would argue that the technology in general looks pretty good for the time.
Yes.
It doesn't distract me with its crappiness like a lot of the 70s stuff does when they try to go too far, like Westworld. I love Westworld, but some of those computers, oh my God.
But what I'm saying is, like, they had an idea, like when they were showing the planes being picked off.
Right.
Yeah.
The animation of that map is very archaic and very Atari.
Well, but
when they could have had
10 years before Asteroids.
Right. But I mean, I've seen some commentary, and it was explained that what they wanted to do.
Right.
They wanted to visually show those things happening.
Yeah, because they talked about the satellites and how the
Right.
satellites can, soon they're going to be able to like, zoom in on your head and you can
Right.
see your hair.
But they couldn't do any of those actual footage of things being shot down and all that stuff, so they had to do it on the map.
Right.
So I think that's where it suffers, because I think the movie would have had more epicness if you were seeing, kind of like when you watch a Pearl Harbor movie, where you're seeing the dogfights, you're seeing the dive bombing of the boats, you're seeing all that, so you feel like you're part of it, you're involved, you're in it.
Saving Private Ryan.
Right, as opposed to sitting and watching it playing out in 8 bits.
Yep.
Yep. I think that's where it suffers.
Now, did you know that and I can't imagine why this is so, guys. Sarcasm alert. The U.S. government did not cooperate at all with the making of this film.
Right.
And so, they bootlegged plane footage, and that's how they got plane footage, because they weren't allowed to use anything, including U.S. government property. And I mean, you get it, but at the same time, like,
what are you hiding?
What are you hiding?
Seriously. We all know.
Why? I mean, now, were you aware of fail-safe checkpoints and patrols and the on guard always bomber thing from the Cold War, George?
No.
It's really scary.
I wasn't aware of the intricate phone service stuff going on.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
punch me in here or connect me here. I'm thinking the whole fate of the world rests on these
Yeah.
phones.
Back then it would have been a
That
manual
operator.
operator. I mean, imagine that operator has to take a bathroom break, and
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Like,
Yeah.
it's a manual operator. Like, he's got to stick the quarter-inch into that, that jack to connect that.
It's like president, vice president,
yeah.
and the phone operator.
It's a very that's a very important switchboard.
Should almost be an electable position.
No, I'm just thinking of the transistor switchboard going
Right.
bad at that time.
Well, or the computer. The computer's going bad and causing World War III.
or getting hacked by some punk kid who's just trying to change his grade card. Whatever.
Yeah. Or trying to make a woman with bras on your head.
And you
Mhm.
you got so ahead of the game, you forgot to hook the doll up.
All right.
Yep.
You forgot to hook up the doll.
Now, toward the beginning of the movie, you see Walter Matthau's character, and he is a professor of political science who is a civilian advisor to the government. That's his role. His name is Dr. Groda Shelley.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about, just kind of for fun at a party, when the nuclear war goes off, the only survivors are going to be convicts and file clerks. And he poses, who would win between the few convicts deep enough in solitary confinement to survive the blast and the file clerks shielded by paper, the world's best insulator or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's
pretty good.
Who's going to let those convicts out of prison? Not the file clerks.
Bane.
Oh.
I love it.
I'm on board with that.
Bane.
Yes, Bane.
Duh.
Oh, I'm going to let everybody out.
If it was 3 movies, Dark Knight Rises would be the best
Oh.
one. But as one movie, it was too much.
No way,
Mm.
bro.
And I'm in the damn thing. And
No way.
yeah, we'll get to it someday.
Are we
I'm
gonna
sure.
do the Dark Knight soon?
We are going to do the Dark Knight soon, I think. I don't know if we'll do the whole thing, but we got to do the Dark Knight.
doing the whole thing.
I mean, if Bane says it, I've got to.
Yes.
You better.
Do not fight me on this, Batman.
So one of the more curious things in this movie, and this is right up front, so we're just going to talk about it in great detail. You meet a woman at the party whose name is Ilsa Wolf.
Mm.
And
She looked way too much like my wife. I'm looking at her. I'm like, holy crap.
Well, you're going to love the next thing I say then.
Oh, boy.
My note says that she's a walking war boner. That lady is so hot to trot for the idea of nuclear apocalypse that,
Yeah, not my wife.
I'm pretty sure at one point, well,
Yeah. She was turned on by it.
I mean,
Yeah.
she was enjoying herself, and at one point, I'm pretty sure she grabs the professor's,
Mm-hmm.
what's up?
Yeah.
Grabs him by his
And he slaps her like a gentleman would.
Yes, he would. Yes.
Yikes.
Puts her in her place.
Yeah, I mean, she was
Yikes.
just really feeling the moment, I guess, and he was not letting her feel his moment. So,
What's funny is he does that to other older men for the next 40 years. Just smacks the shit out of them verbally or physically. Mathau.
man,
Love that guy.
she might be the most like ready to go, hot to trot character we've seen in a movie yet. She might give Sharon Stone a run for her money. I'm serious.
She's no Sharon Stone.
She might be a Sharon Stone. It's interesting. It's a really interesting choice.
Yeah.
It's clear at that point that she is not meant to be taken as like a literal person who this guy should
Right.
deal with, but instead more of a concept on 2 legs.
I think this is where I insert that my wife is not that turned on by war.
It's not war that she's
Yeah.
into, man. It's the destruction of the entire
Right.
planet.
Planet, right? Yeah, she's like Dr. Evil.
She's like straight up like, well, there's a lot of caressing going on during that discussion. It's very
Yes.
creepy. Super effective at creeping me out. But whoa. I like their fortuitous discussion, the bomber crew, before they take off for the main mission. They discuss, pretty soon we won't even have pilots in these planes. I mean, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
Nope.
Enter George Jetson.
It was pretty fortuitous. I mean, everything in this, that's the weird thing about this movie, is it has like a Black Hawk Down level of realism, but with none of the government support that Black Hawk Down had. The use of actual helicopters and real tactics and stuff. So technically it's all over the place, but it's very real.
It definitely had. I kept thinking of. Did you ever see Crimson Tide, Dan?
Oh, I thought you meant George.
No.
If I saw it, it would have been in the early aughts. So I do not remember.
Yeah, it was Gene Hackman was a submarine captain, and Denzel Washington's on the submarine.
Oh, yes. I have seen the
it's like a
Denzel
whole-
Washington.
Yeah, it's like a whole mutiny situation because of basically this kind of situation. And it's so tense. And it's fucking Gene Hackman.
Right.
And it's Denzel Washington.
Right.
And you can imagine this kind of script, the fail-safe script, with those caliber actors just going back and forth. You watch Henry. Peter Fonda's his son.
Peter
Henry
Fonda
Fonda.
would be, that'd be a whole different movie, but
Yeah, it would be a
I'm
different
kind of
movie.
here for it. Like,
Yeah. You see Henry Fonda playing the character that Denzel plays in a way, but he plays it so calm. Like, I'm watching this guy, I'm like, the whole weight of the world is on your shoulders, and the decision you made is this, and you just said that with a straight face and didn't even choke up a little bit when you said it. And I picture someone like Denzel or Gene Hackman or, even Pacino at some point in his career delivering these lines with a lot more feeling, a lot less a matter of fact. It would have blown me away. I know this movie was remade recently, so I'm going to look it up and see who's. I think it's might be George Clooney's involved in it. I don't know if he's in it.
he is, and they did it as a live TV production.
Okay.
So it's actually done like a play. It has Noah Wyle in it. I've never seen it, but after having watched this one again today, I mean, how can I not at least try to find it streaming somewhere? Like, that's
I'm going to check it out.
That could be interesting. It's probably going to suck, right? 2000 George Clooney, like, we're not going to get Dusk Till Dawn George Clooney flying a bomber or whatever he does. But wouldn't that be cool?
He might. I guess he might play the president. I don't know. How old is he in 2000? I think it's like 2003.
Batman old, Like,
Okay, well.
I don't know. I'm going to check it out, but I don't know anything about
I'm
it
gonna
except
check it
that my mom was really excited they were going to do it because she loved George Clooney. Also, I have to tell you, growing up, I knew about this movie because my mom would bring it up pretty regularly. Like, oh, when you're older, you need to watch Failsafe. It's really scary. Oh, they do some really scary stuff. Oh, it's really scary. Like, this is maybe the only scary movie she's ever built up for me. And I remember watching it for the first time, and I nearly had a panic attack watching this movie. It got so tense.
Yeah.
It's damn, right? Like, there's not a lot of time to breathe. It's 20 minutes in and I'm already puckered, right?
Yeah. I wasn't
Yeesh.
sitting down and watching a movie like this. I was not back then. It was too serious for me. So my introduction to a movie like this was like War Games.
This explains Dan's obsession with certain things. Because like every now and then, I think, when was it? I think it was when Trump had COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah,
Dan
we
just
heard the
like-
announcement
Dan-
together right after we recorded a show.
Dan
Oh,
just
right.
Dan just messaged me. No, like the next morning you messaged me like of a specific plane that was now like flying in the air along the East Coast or something like that. Like
Oh, yeah.
it was like the
That was so
the-
fucking scary.
it was like the
Oh my
airborne
God.
war room plane. What
Yeah. No,
was
because
the
we heard about we were recording an episode. I don't remember what movie it was now, but we'd finished the episode. We were bullshitting at the end. I got my phone out while we were chatting, and oh God, the president has COVID. Like, this is bad, right? Like, no matter what side of the political spectrum you fall on, the president having COVID is bad, right? And then, it was
Right.
the next morning I found out that, they'd basically flown not quite what they did in the movie, but they flew basically a heavily armed, not gonna fuck around plane up and just put it in the air and, as a signal, like, he may be ill, but we're still all here.
Yeah, we're still here.
That was scary, man. I hadn't. Ugh.
But he messaged me that like the next morning, and I when I like read the article that he sent me, I was like, well, yeah, that seems normal. And,
See,
like
I
I
don't-
wasn't at all like worried
I
about
don't
it.
think about it as scary. I think of it as strong.
Yeah, I don't think about it as scary either.
Right.
Like the movie was very stressful,
Right.
and it was like it was very dark, but I didn't think it was scary because
Here's the
I mean
thing,
maybe it would have been more scary if I grew up in the 60s.
Well,
Right.
and
Like-
I was a history major because I didn't know that I should have been a poli-sci major, so I ended up like crossing over and doing a lot. I mean, this area, the modern warfare, Cold War era war, World War II and beyond, that has been my interest area for 30 years. Like, that's what
Right.
I do.
Yeah. Right.
So when I see them raise the DEFCON level from one color to the next and more men come in through the back doors, I get a chill because I know, like, without having to think about it, my instinct is, oh God, right? We need more dudes. It's never good when we need more dudes in the SAC command.
Mm.
By the way, guys, if you haven't been to Nebraska, they at Offutt Air Force Base, right off campus, they have a museum, a SAC museum, and you can go check out like an SR-71 Blackbird in person, just like on a
Nice.
tarmac.
I love that plane.
It's a cool museum. I highly recommend. If you're ever in Nebraska and you're not at a football game, go to the SAC museum. It's really cool.
It might just be just about the only thing in Nebraska to see.
And you can tell all your friends you saw the SAC museum, and they'll go, huh.
Big sacks, little sacks.
So many. They had an Apache there one time. Oh, I was like, guys, this is cool. Yeah, but
See, that kind of reminds me of 9/11 when they put GW in the Air Force One, and they didn't land it anywhere for longer than like 20 minutes.
mhm.
Yeah.
Like they just kept landing and then taking off.
Yep.
Landing, fueling, taking off. Like it was like 2 days of him being in the air, and that was very surreal to me.
Yeah.
Despite your politics, like it was weird to see
Yeah.
something that would be in a movie is happening.
Yep.
So yeah, I can totally see that when you see the news that there's a fully armed bird in the air as a huge middle finger to the rest of the world, saying, "Listen,
Don't try it.
dude might be,
Right.
dude might have 104, but we got this." Yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, behind the dude's another dude. Like, we got plenty
Right.
of dudes. But, it's the thing you talk about, you see it as strong, you see it as scary or whatever, however you see it. It's the difference between a police officer putting his hand out and saying, stop, right? Versus a police
Mhm.
officer drawing his weapon, pointing at you and saying, stop, right? Like the difference in the interaction, he is just as strong when he says it, but if he thinks he needs to go to that next level, like the escalation is such that it should be scary. Whether you're on the
Yeah.
side of the guy with the gun or the guy, either way,
no, I agree with that. My issue is that's not the people he's talking to when that happens.
What do you mean?
It's like the cop
Oh,
who puts his
you're
hand
talking
out
about
and
the
says
cop.
stop. He kind of knows the situation and he knows this
right.
person's not a
what-
threat.
What Dan is saying is that when the weapon comes out, like, you should be scared because The cop is
Right.
scared at this point.
Right. Exactly. But
Scared
I mean,
enough to draw.
I
yeah.
look at it as it depends on who you're trying to convey a message to everybody of strength, but you're basically talking to the 4 assholes in the back of the room saying,
Yeah, that,
you know what I mean?
that's true
You're
too.
not talking to the rest of the room.
Yeah.
You're talking to the guys that are drunk in the back of the room.
Yeah, but 2 minutes
Yeah.
ago you were talking to those 4 guys and your gun wasn't out.
Yeah, and they weren't taking you seriously.
So it's
Right.
just, I don't know.
Yeah, to me, I see what you're saying. Like, you're going to escalate. You're basically, when you pull your weapon, you're going to instigate a situation.
Well, it's like you've admitted you're in a position of weakness. Even if it is a position you can come back from, it's a telltale sign that, like, the control you thought you had, you no longer have, and you know it.
Right.
Hence the gun.
Did you ever see Grand Canyon, the movie Grand Canyon?
Oh, my God. Years ago. That's one of my wife's family's
Fucking
favorites.
amazing movie, right?
Mm.
And Danny Glover is talking to an unarmed drug dealer, and the drug dealer has a gun to Danny Glover's face, and they have a confrontation about the gun, or conversation in the confrontation about the gun, and in the end, the drug dealer says, "Is it because I have a gun in your face?" And Glover says, looks him right in the eye and says, "You don't have the gun? We're not having this conversation." Period. Like, he's just, he's basically letting him know, I'm only respecting you because you got a gun in my face.
Right.
Otherwise, I'd be unloading on you and beating the shit out of you.
Right.
But it's just the delivery of that line. You could see who actually has control of the situation, and that's kind of what Dan's saying. Like,
Yes. Yes.
you can govern the situation without a gun, but
That's actually a stronger position.
yeah,
Yes.
but the one with the gun
Is compensating and is actually in the stronger position.
Exactly. But the guy who says you don't have the gun, we're not having this conversation, if that guy had a gun, the other guy wouldn't survive the situation. So it's hard.
It's a very
complex.
Complex situation, yeah.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Well, I think we should probably bid everybody who hasn't watched the movie a quick pause. Guys, go watch this friggin' movie. Like, it's really good. It's black and white, though. So if you're one of them complaining like my children because, there's no color in the movie. Okay, you're too bad. It's fucking good. Go check out this movie and then come on back.
And I can understand, because the first time I started watching it, I was like, and I can't remember what I texted to Dan, but it was basically me passive aggressively saying, "Can we pick a different movie?"
Yeah.
I was basically like, what is your angle here? Because this is completely off the rails where we were. And he's like, what did you say? Trust the process?
Trust the
Blah, blah, blah.
fungus, man. As
The fungus.
an uptight, pretentious movie snob, I quoted the Super Mario Brothers movie.
But I know where he's going with this, so I get it. But it did kind of come out of the left field.
But
I'm like, is he watching this movie because there was a fucking rocket ship in Weird Science? I'm not really sure what the connection is. And then I was like, wait, I know there's an actor in this movie that's going to be in a movie we're watching in a couple weeks. Is that why we're watching it? Because he made us watch the entire Thing movie just for a walk. We watched Suspiria because of maggots. Like, I just wasn't sure why we were watching this movie. And now when I actually collected my thoughts, took a nap.
Suspiria.
And then,
That was
that's Phenomena.
not Suspiria, Phenomena. We haven't watched Suspiria. Then I realized, okay, I know the movie we're going to be watching soon.
Will it be the next one?
So I get it.
Or just
I don't
one
know,
that's
it depends on which bag or cat we're opening.
All
Whatever
right.
bag of cats we're opening.
Oh, of cats. I was going to say, I was
Or cat.
going to recommend opening a cat if that was an option.
It's possible.
All right, so everyone that hasn't seen the movie is gone.
Wait, there's someone in the back.
You're cheating.
Out of
You.
here.
You know who I'm
Get the
talking
fuck out of here.
Okay, now that everyone's gone, it was the water. The water is what kills the aliens.
Swing away?
Swing away.
No, apparently it's Blackie.
Oh, man. Blackie, man.
That's a nickname that didn't age very well.
Poor guy.
That used to be a character name on like a soap opera.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
no, I
Is
mean,
that
it's
John Stamos' name.
When I'm having a really good hair day, my wife calls me Blonde Stamos.
Blonde Stamos.
Yeah.
Nice. Interesting. So the decision that the president comes to just doesn't seem right to
It
me.
does. It does avoid all-out nuclear war, though.
Yeah, but incinerate Nebraska. Like, why?
No, it has to
Fucking
be
New York.
Moscow.
Why not Philly?
It has to.
It's
No,
gotta
it
be
has
Moscow
to be
equivalent, man.
It has to be New York or D.C.
Then do DC. Seriously,
Wow.
I've seen it. There's
I-
nothing good there.
I listen. I thought it was a good. It was a good. I don't want to say compromise, but it's like
Exchange.
it is the sacrifice that you have to make to avoid any further.
I don't think New York City is equivalent to Moscow. I don't. I would maybe say like Los Angeles.
I don't know much about Moscow,
I don't think.
but Los Angeles is packed too. Like there's
Yeah, not as much as New York, I don't think.
Well, and you have to keep in mind the Moscow command and control structure. Like, that's the one that really hangs me up, is it's like, my God, like, you've just decimated the core of the Soviet government.
Hmm.
And we know how tenuous the Soviet hold was on the outer union.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just, either in any way, I think you can't go 1-to-1, right? I think in terms of, cultural value, New York holds a special place in all our hearts because of everything that they've done well and some of the things that we all pick on them for. I don't know, man.
And was that confirmed that his wife was in New York?
that's what the paper said.
Yeah, his wife, the president's wife,
Blackie's family was there.
his whole family's there. I mean, it's like they all give all to save the rest of the country and the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Did you catch the line from Walter Matthau when they're beginning his little speech to, is it the Joint Chiefs or somebody, just a large military gathering there?
About communism?
When he says, he points at the screen, he was like, well, we settled the question of accidental war last week, so we can't use this alert today for our discussion. Ugh. Like, it's one of those things you might miss the first time because you don't know what's coming, right? But it's just like, oh.
He was a bit of a disgusting character.
He was trouble, man. But that's the thing, right? You always have these people that, and the crazy thing is the book that this is based on was written by 2 political scientists. So, I mean, it's these guys, or right, they know their colleagues, right? The ones who,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yikes. I mean, it's just too real. Like, this whole movie.
And then I think about like the movies that this director made later, and that I've never seen this movie. Like he made some good movies that I don't know if we're going to touch on any of them, but I'm shocked I've never seen this movie. Because this is it's up there with those movies I know he made, but no one talks about this movie.
I thought it was a little weird that 6 planes versus the entire Russian defense.
And only one of the planes had the missiles, right? So
I'm
the
not
other
sure.
5 were decoys, or all of them had missiles?
I think all but the
except for
one decoy.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But they could shoot down 6 planes.
Well, I mean, if it happened right now, and you send a squadron of 6 B-2s, they might get one if they're lucky, and they'd have to get it with the bay doors were open. Like, that's just technology, and that was our technology at the time. I mean, keep in mind they didn't have the bomb for a long time after we did, and that's what really accelerates this whole process. Is we think we have military superiority, and then they bring it to parody, and it freaks everybody out.
But then again, we're not really sure how. That's the problem with governments like this and dictators and whatever. Like they peacock a lot and they grandstand and they show off. And like, who's to say the missiles they had were even functional? Just because they're on the back of a trailer being pulled in a parade doesn't mean it actually will lift off. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a lot of propaganda.
I mean, this is Russia we're talking about, not North Korea.
Yeah, but
Like,
in the 50s,
you
like,
really didn't know, yeah.
you
I
didn't
gotcha.
know the capability that they had. They could tell you. Intelligence could tell you.
Mm,
But we've all learned that maybe the intelligence isn't correct.
sure. We're just gonna figure out. We only know what we find out.
Right.
Another thing I thought was, why not reach out to Russia immediately and have this taken care of over the North Pole?
Mm.
Right?
Have you ever heard of a movie called Stagecoach?
No.
Yeah.
Real famous Western directed by John Ford. There's a potentially apocryphal story. It might be true. A filmmaker asks the guy that directed it, why didn't the natives just shoot the horses?
Mhm.
And the director
Right.
says, we wouldn't have had a movie.
Yeah, I guess
It's
you're
true.
right.
Yeah, I don't know who said that, but I remember you bringing that actually up before.
Oh God, I'm repeating myself on the show.
No, but you didn't like go into detail. I just remember you that quote from something. Or maybe I watched it in a documentary or something.
I don't remember that. Yeah, but that was I guess that was just me being me. You know, not letting the movie take me like I should.
You gotta be that Ilsa Wolf lady to every movie. Just stroking your furry fur. What is it? I don't even know. What is that thing she was wrapped in? It wasn't like it was like a fur, not a shirt. I don't know female fashion.
And just
I was looking at her face. I don't even know what the hell she was wearing.
and just grab the movie, but never mind.
Yikes. What'd you guys think about the presentation of crazy academic perspective on the idea that the Soviets are, quote, these are Marxist fanatics, not normal people. They're not motivated by human emotions such as rage and pity. They're calculating machines.
Propaganda of the time.
And then juxtaposed against the actual conversation between our general and General Konev, where they talk about London.
Yep.
Dude, that kills me every time.
Mhm.
Yep. That was a very poignant like part of the movie where it just was like, when this is all going down, like when we're doomed, right? Like all of our
Petty differences.
all of our differences, all of our disagreements, all of our whatever goes away, and like we're just human.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why does it have to be like, I don't know, 10 seconds before you're dead for us to realize this? Which is the point of why it's there.
In the
Right?
end, when you sit and you watch this whole movie, the only real asshole in this movie is the guy flying the planes. Because he's following the orders. Like, they're all saying, dude, like even his wife. And he's just like, yeah, no, I got to do it. I'm like, just listen to the president, listen to your wife. Isn't he the commander-in-chief? Isn't he your boss? Like, I know there's protocols, but everybody's telling you this is not real.
Yeah, also your radio was jammed the entire time you were flying across the ocean.
Yeah, I don't like that guy. Fuck that guy. That's the guy I was angry with. The Russians are like, yeah, we know it was a mistake, but we're gonna fuck you up. If
Yeah,
you
like
fuck us
you
up.
had hours. Again, we wouldn't have had a movie, but
Right.
you had hours of like no radio communication. When normally, I guess it's never a normal situation, but normally in this situation, you would be able to verify with your superiors and with the president and all that. Like when it's like, okay, we're going to Moscow now, and like you're on the radio and it's like, this is for real. And it's like, yes, this is for real.
Right.
And then once you cross over and you get close enough to the target, then at that point, if you get an order to turn around, it's no good anymore because you've already confirmed it.
Right.
But we never had the confirmation because the radio was never working. So that's kind of like an exception that maybe like a human person could,
Right.
you know?
And I think that's what took the tenseness away from me was the fact that everybody does have access to each other. And it's just frustrating because there's this group that is disregarding everybody else. Like with A Hunt for October or especially Crimson Tide, like they're on submarines. They are separated from everything. There's no communication. So you don't know what's going on up there.
Yeah.
It's just you guys on the ship or this submarine, and you're going on your gut, on your protocol, on your orders, like all these different things you're going on, but you're alone down there. You're secluded. You're sequestered. It's just that's the kind of tension I was expecting in this movie, but it kind of fell short on me because there was so much access with the phone, the different war rooms. Like everybody had access to each other, so it was basically just people being a pain in the ass. Like you're not listening to each other, as opposed to somebody having to make the decision on their own in seclusion. Like to me, that's more stressful because it's on that person. That one person doesn't have influence from the president to tell him yay or nay. Or
I guess the only person in this movie that was kind of almost, I guess, kind of like that was the president, right? Because even though he was talking to,
the
Nebraska and the interpreter and Moscow and all those, but it's still in his decision.
It's
ultimately he's alone,
right? And that's why he says, "I take this responsibility." It's all on me.
He's got to.
God, his face when he realizes, or says out loud that they're going to have to shoot down their own bombers, like, Oscar, like, take it.
I like when he says, and if necessary, shoot them down. And he's like, it's going to be necessary. And he's like, do it. Like,
yeah.
That, I think, probably hits our generation a little different than it would have, if we were talking about this movie in 1995.
Well, I remember when 9/11 happened, the anguish and disgust that was felt for at least 2 days when we thought that Flight 93 was shot down. And
it wasn't?
Not flown in. Well, later we find out that the passengers broke into the cockpit and the pilot flew it into the ground.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
No,
what
I'm saying is
I think either situation is equally as possible to have happened.
No, they both were possible, and I still to this day think we might have shot that plane down.
I think, and if we did, it was the right thing to do.
But if we did shoot it down, it would not have made a crater. It would have been blown up in the sky. That's the only thing that makes me think that the pilot flew it into the ground.
It's a much better story.
Yeah. The only thing that makes me think that we did not shoot it down, even though for 2 days I thought we did, was the fact that it impacted the ground. The body of the plane made a crater the size of half a football field.
Okay, real evidence. I'll take it.
So to me, if they would have blown it out of the sky, it would
have been pieces, and it wouldn't have been like that.
To the ground.
Gotcha.
But yeah, those couple days when you thought that happened, it was really tough to think, like the decision that had to be made. Do we let that plane hit a city, or do we take that plane out and kill 100 people?
Yeah, and that's just 100 people. Not that that's light, but
not the 20 million that they were talking about.
Yeah, there are decisions even bigger than that need to be made in this movie.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's wild to think that, the people that grew up in this era made the movies of the 80s. Just like the guys that were first lieutenants in Vietnam are the colonels and generals in Desert Storm. Then the Desert Storm first lieutenants are there in 2003. it's interesting to think what that, like, it's like a flip-flop from generation to generation, what you've experienced, then how does it affect the next war?
Mm.
It's going to be really interesting to see 20 years from now or 15 years from now when our last, 5 to 10 year young military leadership come of age, what lessons they're going to take out of the last 10 years of combat.
I think
into
you're
the
already
next
seeing
one.
it. A lot of the fighting is done not boots on the ground. That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
You have this tech savvy generation. It's like, I personally know somebody who flies drones for a living.
Yeah.
So it's like, instead of actually being a pilot and flying something somewhere, you're now doing it from not the comfort of your own home, but that's the wave of the future.
It's going to be
robotic soldiers and
really
and drones.
interesting to see what the next 20 years are like. I mean, it's always interesting, right? It never stops being interesting. It's just sometimes it's a lot easier to find the interesting stuff than other times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like, today's generation, when they watch a movie like Saving Private Ryan, and they watch that storming of the beaches in Normandy, and you're just sitting there going, and you watch a movie like Glory, or a Revolutionary War, or something, Civil War. You just see the disregard for human life. Basically, the front line is dead. You're dead. You're going to be a shield so the other guys can get by. And it's like, I think that's slowly going away to the point where now the generations are like, why waste people like that? Let's do things more, technically through robotics or whatever. So I think that's where we're heading.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched Full Metal Jacket this week. That's always uplifting.
First half or second half?
Whole thing.
And you watch the
Whole darn thing. Haven't done that in a while. Probably hadn't watched the whole
Amazing.
movie since college. Damn,
I think
dude.
I've watched the first scene of that movie probably 50 times.
It's an amazing movie. Both sides of it, but it's just two different movies. You got to be in the mood for one or the other. You can't.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? I want to watch this part today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably it's probably the easier way to watch it, really, because the whole roller coaster ride thing, it's a lot for one movie.
You know what this movie this movie reminded me of, or that this movie probably influenced? The dude that used a computer for the first time in World War II to decode the Germans' messages. Right?
Like the Enigma machine?
Yes.
I don't know what movie that is.
Well, in the movie, once they crack it, now they have access to all of the German communication. Right? But now they have to make decisions. What attacks are they going to let go through? And what attacks are they going to stop? Because if the Germans catch on that they know that they've cracked it, then gig is up.
Yeah, you don't want to, like, if you're going to cheat on a test, you might put a couple wrong answers on there.
Exactly.
Just to make
Exactly.
So
Exactly
are you
right.
referring to The Imitation Game, the recent movie with
Is that what it was called?
Benedict Cumberbatch?
Yes, that was the one. Yep. Yes, very similar decisions had to be made in
It's
that
like
movie.
Sophie's Choice. Like, who do you decide to save just to mask the fact that you know everything they're doing?
Mm-hmm.
I hear you.
I mean, if you ever look at any, CIA intelligence operation back in the day or anymore. I mean, the thing is, right? And it's hard to explain to people who don't grasp the gravity of this. Like, explaining to a normie how any of these things can be possible and also not evil at the same time is very difficult. But, taking, for example, and I'll probably cut this part out, the Kennedy assassination thing, right? Where Oswald is a known entity to the CIA. So that makes people think, oh, the CIA is in on it. And it's like, they know the guy's got contacts in Cuba. They know the guy's he's been to the Russian embassy in Mexico. Like, they're tracking this guy. But you can't just arrest every guy when you catch them doing one bad thing, because you have to use them to find who they're talking to and climb the chain and try to flip them and be, just trying to explain to somebody the complexity of those situations. It's impossible.
Wait, wasn't he a patsy?
Who knows, man? I wonder how many electoral college votes this movie flipped. Probably not a ton, right? It didn't do a huge amount of box office. But I wonder if there is a small group of people that they saw the Daisy ad, they were on the fence, like, don't really like this Johnson guy, right? Never elected him before, not really my kind of guy. Then they see this movie and go, okay.
I don't know. The problem with Johnson is...
Yeah, that's what she said.
I'm only looking at him with 2020 vision. Like, I don't know what it was like back then. I'm only looking at it as a Monday morning quarterback. Like, I know I don't like him based on things I learned over the years. It's not like I don't know what was going on in 64. Maybe he was different. I don't know. Like, I wasn't around. Were you around?
Aren't there recordings, I believe it's of Johnson ordering
racist.
pants?
Hmm?
Ordering pants, having, like, he's on the phone with somebody and he's, like, ordering pants.
I don't know.
Like,
I know he had a very foul mouth.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
Lyndon Johnson. He's, like, giving him the dimensions and telling him how low he wants the crotch to be because he can't stand pants of a certain crotch length. I don't know.
Yeah, actually,
Right.
yeah, that's the thing. I had never heard that before, but here it is on YouTube. Oh,
There you go.
God.
Is it does it rank up there with Orson Welles about the gonk?
It sounds quite a bit like that line from Drunk Gary. He says, just from the little, I'm just looking at the link. I'm not even going to click it, but down where your nuts hang, belch, back to my bunghole.
Yes.
That's the taint.
That's almost the same line as Drunk Gary. That's bizarre, man. What a weird life is. Life is weird.
Gary.
George, would you
Let's go.
recommend people check out Failsafe if they didn't watch it yet, but they stayed to the end just because they don't mind spoiling the movie for themselves?
Absolutely.
Travis, you want to tell George what we're up to next time?
Next week, you'll be watching a movie that I do love.
Go on.
Yes. A little bit more mainstream.
Okay.
Do you know who Peter Sellers is?
Can't say that I do.
Okay, good. We will be watching Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove.
Or
Or, I knew you were going to do that. I was going to bring it up. I don't know the full title. Do you know it? Dr. Strangelove
or
what?
How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb.
of the Bomb.
Wait,
What?
is that one movie?
That's the
Is that
title.
one
That's
movie title?
That's the whole. Yeah, it's a big title.
It's a big title.
All right.
Or basically known by its friends as Dr. Strangelove.
I've heard of
Yes.
Doctor Strangelove. I have never seen it.
What have you heard? What do you know?
Oh, just the title.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't know the content,
I have no
what it's
idea.
about?
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on the Remedial Film Class podcast. As always, you can find us at Twitter and Instagram at Remedial Film Pod. You can email us old school at remedialfilmpod@gmail.com. And of course, you can find us at facebook.com/remedialfilmpod. And of course, if you were watching this on YouTube, be aware that we are on all major podcast apps. And if you're listening to this on a podcast app and you think, man, I really want to look at some bonus features now and then, check us out on YouTube. We're a real easy spot. We'll be back here next week with Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Years ago, I volunteered at like a before and after school care kind of thing to get volunteer hours for a scholarship. And there was this kid that found out that my buddy and I liked computer games, and he would come up. He's like a first grader. Mr. Dan, I was playing Age of Empires 2, The Age of Kings last night with my dad. And I'm like, yeah, cool. That's a good game. He's like, yeah. Well, while I was playing Age of Empires 2, The Age of Kings with my dad, I was having a lot of fun with my pikemen because, in Age of Empires 2, The Age of Kings. And I imagine that kid now is probably 25 years old. And Mr. Dan, I'm really excited that you are going to be watching Doctor Strangelove or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. And tonight, when you rewatch Doctor, I love that
and he'll
kid.
keep saying
That's a good kid. You got to read the whole title or it doesn't count.
Exactly. And American Werewolf in London.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh my gosh. Well, George, are you excited to return so quickly to Mr. Kubrick?
Yes, of course.
I don't think there's any light switches in this movie, but I'm going to look at that shit up.
I mean,
I think I might make a t-shirt that says I mean, but you can't design, you can't silk screen the voice. So I don't know if that works.
It's worth a shot.
It's worth a shot.
Put a QR code on it when they scan it.
There you go.
It's just
And
me going,
you'll
I
be
mean.
Name it.
Name it.
Doop, 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 doop.